Hi everyone, it's Lindy Yon from Pink Whisper Designs. Today we're going to create this pretty tulip floral card, and we're going to be adding touches of white or highlights of white throughout the card, and I'll talk about that a little bit more as we go along. So let's take a look at the first image we're going to be using today, and that will be these beautiful tulips. Now I used this set in a previous card, and we did those other two images there, these two here. Today we're going to be using these tulips. And this is called the Floral Long Stem Bouquet set from Art Impressions. And the second set is going to be the glass container set. And you can see how beautiful these are. I love these little pots. And I've used that other one before, and I'll talk about that again a little bit later. And then I'm going to grab this kind of medium-sized one. But I did want to show you that there are these bud vases available as well. So if you were doing a single stem or something smaller, you can see they're a little bit smaller, you could certainly grab one of those. Now, I'm not going to stamp both of these at the same time because that stamp of that vase is a little bit thicker, so I'll need to remove that mat from my MISTI in order to do that. So let's stamp this first one, and I've got some Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock, and then you can see that I'm going to remove that little foam mat because of that thickness of this stamp, and now we can stamp this one. And I'm using the VersaFine Onyx Black ink to do my stamping. So once I have those stamped, let's go ahead and start some coloring. I've got light pink and peach pink. I'm going to start with the light pink, and I'm using my Zig blender pen to do my blending. So here, what I'm going to do is add that darker color after I added that lighter color. So I blended out the lighter color, then I came in with the darker, and I'm going to do my blending. Now you could certainly add both colors at the same time. So here I've got bright yellow and orange, and then I'm going to add that darker bright yellow at the same time and do my blending. So either way will work, it's just whatever way you prefer. So let's do that blending, and I'm using 3 different colors of flowers today. I'm going to use the pink and kind of the yellowy orange color, and then we're going to add a little bit of violet. Or actually lavender. I'm going to add English lavender and a purplish gray just to give it a little bit of shadowing. So let's go ahead and do that, the same thing, same type of blending, and I'm just going to color these 3 in on camera. The rest of those flowers, I'll just repeat that same process, alternating those same colors. Just a little bit more shadowing here, and then again I'll do the rest off camera. And then with May Green and Green, I'll do the stems. And again, I'll just show you a few of these. I start with the May Green. I'll add a little bit of the green for the shadowing, and then I'll just do some simple blending. So this was some really quick coloring. And then for that little pot, we're going to dress it up a little bit. I wanted to give it more of a ceramic look rather than a glass container look. And I'm actually going to refer to the packaging that comes with this set. I love the indexing that's on the packaging, and you can see that they give you a few different ideas, and I love to use those. And so for this one, I'm going to start with the light gray and just add some shadowing because I want it to be mostly white, but we'll be adding some stripes of like aquas and kind of a blue-green color down at the bottom. So I'll add that shadowing of the gray just a little bit, and then I'm going to grab sea green and Persian green. So I'll start with that sea green, and we'll do a thin stripe across with the sea green. And then down below that, I'm going to add a thicker stripe with that Persian green. And again, I'll just kind of add that shadowing on each side, and then we'll just pull that across. That'll just give the center of the pot a little bit of a highlight. Now later we'll come in and we'll add a few little polka dots to that, but for now I'm going to let that dry completely. And I'm going to use my detail scissors and cut around that, leaving a little white border all the way around. So let's take a look at the 3D texture fades. These are the mini embossing folders. This one is called Mini Lumber. These are from Holtz, and you can see it's got this really cute lumber design. We're going to just grab a small piece of craft cardstock and place that in there. I did run it through my Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine, and you will want to use the instructions for your specific machine for these embossing folders. Now I'm starting off with the Tim Holtz Distress ink in the Gathered Twigs, and then for a little bit of shadowing I'm going to switch over to the Ground Espresso. I'm just doing one of those little sections of lumber, and I'll cut away that excess. And I just used a small blending brush to do my blending on these. Let's go ahead and trim that down, and then we can go back and finish off those edges. Now, as I was doing this, I thought it was a little too straight across. So I did decide to grab my detail scissors and cut a little closer to the edge of that lumber. Just kind of follow along the line of the lumber rather than a perfectly straight line across. This will be a little shelf to sit our floral arrangement on. So let's go ahead and finish off those edges. And then I took that Ground Espresso ink and I just kind of scraped it across the top of that embossed area just for a little bit more definition. And here's a closer look at that. Next, we're going to use another 3D Texture Fades mini embossing folder from Tim Holtz, and this one is the Mini Brickwork. And again, this will be for behind our little arrangement. But I thought what I would do is take some white Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock and then ink up the in between the bricks with the hickory smoke. So I'm taking the top side of the embossing folder and I'm going to ink up all of those little lines that go around the bricks. So the inside of the brick, not the bricks themselves. You could certainly do it the other way around. You would just ink up the opposite side of your embossing folder. So once I did that, I didn't think it was quite defined enough, so I'm going to ink that up again. And this will easily wash off your embossing folder. You just want to spritz it with a little bit of water and wipe that clean. So I'm lining this right back up in where I embossed before and running that through the die cutting machine one more time. Let's cut this down just a little bit, and this will measure 4 inches by 2 3/4 inches. Back to the hickory smoke, let's go around all 4 of those edges and just define those edges a little bit more. So I want my white highlight to be in the center. So again, remember, we're kind of adding pops of white, and that's one of them there. Now let's switch over to this cute little set. I'm just going to grab the bow and the little ribbon that goes around the bow. And that is called the Easter Bunny Puppet Set. And it's so cute. It builds the most adorable little puppet. It does come with all the coordinating dies. So off camera, I stamped the ribbon and the bow and I colored them in. And then I'm going to add that to this container. Now you'll see that it's a little bit long for the container. So what I'm going to do is take a permanent black marker. I like my Pitt Artist pens. And I did decide to cut away that excess white that's showing. That was when I die cut it, but I did decide to grab my detail scissors and cut that away. So I've got my Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pen. These are permanent pens. And I'm going to just redraw those lines right around that container, and then I'll cut that excess away. That was really easy to do. I just followed the lines that were already there. And now we can glue this in place. And it'll look like it was there the whole time. It will look like it was part of that stamp. So it's fun to kind of switch your stamps up and use them in different ways. And then for the bow, I'm not going to cut away that excess white. I'm just going to attach this. I'm just curling up the bow just a little bit to give it some definition. And I'll glue that right in the center. Now here's where I grabbed my gel pen, the white gel pen, and I'm going to add some white dots, and I'll add a few highlights to that bow. And then I'm also going to highlight each of my flowers. So again, here's some pops of white. the little white dots and the little highlights that we're adding. So this is another way you could add some touch of white or some highlights to your card. Let's go ahead and glue these two together. And you can see how pretty this is. And I do want to pop this up. So I've got some small foam squares. I'm not going to place them all the way at the bottom because that's going to sit on our little wooden shelf. And so I'll just glue that down. So I've also got the large foam squares. These are both from scrapbook.com. And I'll put these all across the bottom of our little shelf. And then I'm using my Cricut weeding tool just to remove that backing, and we'll place this at the bottom. Now we can go ahead and attach our flower arrangement. Let's remove the backing on these and then add just a little touch of glue down at the bottom, right where it sits on that shelf. Next, let's mat this piece onto some 4¼ by 3" black 100-pound cardstock. That's just going to frame this a little bit better. And I'm going to add some Nouveau Deluxe adhesive. And I do want to make sure I add plenty because there's a lot of low spots when you do that embossing. So I'm going to make sure I have enough areas that will grab onto this black cardstock. I'll just center that. And then let's go ahead and grab some craft 100-pound cardstock. I cut that to 5¼ inches by 4 inches. And then I'm going to use that really pretty little row of tulips from the My Trust set from Art Impressions. And we're going to be stamping these down at the bottom of this panel. And we're going to be stamping these with some white ink and white embossing powder. So again, here's another way we can add that little pop of white to our card. And I'm going to use my anti-static powder tool just so none of that powder sticks where we don't want it to. And then I've got my Hero Art Unicorn Pigment ink pad. Just going to quickly prep that stamp by rubbing it with my fingers since I haven't used it before. And it's a fairly solid image. So I'm going to prep that quickly, and let's go ahead and ink that up. And then I'll want to stamp this across the entire border. So I'm going to move that cardstock. I'll move it to the right first to do that little end, and then I'll move it to the left and we'll complete that stamping all the way across. So I'm lining that up, and let's finish our stamping. So previously I had done a card called Touch of Gold Floral Cards. I did 2 cards using 2 of the other images from this set, as I mentioned earlier, and I will link those on my blog. And if you go to today's blog post, you'll actually see those cards there, and I will link the video as well. Do keep in mind that all of the products I'm using today are listed and linked down below as well as on my blog. So I've added some detail white embossing powder. I'm going to tap away the excess and we'll go ahead and heat set this. Now next I'm going to go back to that My Trust set and I'm going to grab these little speckles. This is a stamp, it's like my go-to stamp now. Going back to my travel box, and I'm going to grab that acrylic block and we'll just stamp this all around. So I do want to prep my cardstock again since we will be embossing this. And again, this is another way to add some white highlights to your card. You could also just speckle some white ink here or some white paint, but I am going to be adding lots of different colors of speckles. I want to incorporate all the colors from the flowers into my background. So I'm going to start with the white, and this is the only one we're going to be embossing. So I'll go back to that Ranger Detail White embossing powder and add that. Let's go ahead and tap away that excess. And then I'll quickly heat set this. And once you heat set it, if there's areas where you wanted some additional speckling, I did it before I heat set it, which is fine as well. I just tried to avoid the other areas, add a little more embossing powder, and then go ahead and heat that. So once that was done, I decided to take that same unicorn pigment ink and go all the way around this, just to frame it. And again, another way of adding that white highlight. So another touch of white. And you can add any of these little white highlight ideas or just a few of them, whatever you prefer. But I thought I'd show you several different ways to do this. So now I'm going to just use a dry cloth and just kind of buff away any of that excess ink that might be on my embossed area. Now I'm going to grab those colors that are very close to the way I colored in the tulips. So I'm starting with Kitsch Flamingo. I'm going to stamp those little speckles all around in this color. Now on the craft cardstock it was very light, so later I'll come in with a little bit of a darker pink. Then I'm going to add the Spice Marmalade, again kind of mimicking that sherbet color that we have on the tulips. And then the last color is the shaded Lilac. Now here's where I thought I needed another little pop of color. So I did go back and grab the picked raspberry and added a little bit of that. So you can see those speckles will tie in all the colors that we have on our image. Let's go ahead and center this frame on this card panel and then create the card base. This measures 11 inches by 4 1/4 inches. I'm scoring it at 5 1/2 inches, so this will be a standard A2 size top folding card. And then here's where I grab those little hearts. And these are just so cute. I'm going to pop 3 of these. Again, another way to add that white highlight. And again, I will list and link all the products I'm using today down below. With the Happy Spring set, I'm going to just grab that sentiment really quickly and stamp that on the inside of the card. I'll just grab that same acrylic block and stamp this with the black VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I've been lately, again, wanting to try to finish the insides of my card so I don't have to go back later and find a sentiment that coordinates with my card. So I've been doing that, and then I'm going to take some 3D foam tape and pop this entire panel up on the card. This is a nice sturdy adhesive and it gives you a lot of dimension. So let's use that Cricut weeding tool and pop off the backing, and then we'll go ahead and place this down on the card. And I am leaving a little white border around the edges, again another little pop of white. So I gave you several different ways to add that pop of white. You can pick and choose the ones that you like, just add a few or all of them. And it really brings your card to life. The white, I find, really makes your card shine. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a single video. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really hope you have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.